dragons are supposed to be smart and almost vaneful creatures, right? I mean, in a nutshell, that's kind of what they are. They're entities that see themselves above others, especially those lowly little humanoids, those puny little town dwellers who roam around in carts. And dragons are powerful. And honestly, if you're never going to win against a dragon, especially out in the open, why would they ever go down to the ground to fight you? A smart dragon's going to stay in the air and just do their breath weapon. So I have no clue why in fiction I see this a lot where we see people riding dragons. It makes no sense. No respectable red dragon of any age, young or ancient or legendary, whatever it is going to allow you to ride them. They rather slam you into a mountain before you even get a chance to put a mount on their back. So, above table, no dragon mounts.
It's a good question. It's a good question.
Are you trying to tell us something as players that we're not allowed to ride a dragon?
Yeah, I'm just telling you that. Welcome, players, DMs, DTRPG enthusiasts, to Above Table. All right, the fight music starts now, so I need everyone, even on the internet, those watching, roll initiative. Wonderful. No, I'm not telling you. I'm not giving you any hints. No, it's
I got
fine.
a 2.
Got a 2? Oh, you got this.
Everybody else has to talk first, I guess.
I saw this. I
rewatched. Ride a dragon.
Did I? Oh yeah. Well, that's different. There was a connection.
There was consent.
I rewatched the beginning of Baldur's Gate 3. There was that intro cutscene where the Nautiloid or whatever it's called is going through like different space and different realms, and while that's happening, the Githyanki are chasing them on red dragons. Which when I rewatched that, because I barely pay attention to it, I was like, why would a dragon even consider the fact to let someone ride them? Holding on reins and directing them, that makes no sense to me.
I think you audibly said this.
I did audibly, yes.
Because I was just sitting here and he was going, why the hell would a dragon let a Gith ride it? And I was just, that's a random.
It's the Gith and what's the other one?
Githari or Githyanki and the Githari.
Githari and Githyanki. It's never been my favorite part of the lore, but I know there's like lore reasons that they're connected to red dragons specifically. I think a lot of fictional setups work backwards from it's really cool to have somebody riding a dragon. How can we justify it? And I know there countless book series and other things where that's been like a thing, right? I would say one that does a good job justifying it. My intro to the D&D larger universe was Dragonlance. My mom had the Dragonlance books, and I read those when I was like in middle school into high school, and got me into D&D because those are adaptations of somebody's D&D campaign, and then those people went on to be like D&D writers back and forth in that way. So in Dragonlance, part of the deal is there's good dragons and evil dragons.
Yeah, the chromatic and the
metallic. Chromatic and the metallic. And that's where a lot of that lore that comes into 5e comes from. And they're like at war with each other. And there are these magical items called dragon lances that are sort of like kryptonite to Superman. They really, really, really hurt dragons. So in that case, it kind of makes sense for there to be people holding those lances, riding on the backs of dragons to use those against the other dragons. And that's like from a military perspective. It's like, okay, what can't a dragon do? They can do a breath weapon, but they can't like get into small spaces. They're not great at like precision ranged combat. I guess you try to think like what does a dragon gain from letting a person ride them, right? We're assuming dragons are not just like animals to be tamed in most of these
I was going to say scenarios. We're in a scenario where we're assuming they are intelligent.
Yeah. There's
it's a strange. I get the idea like having, but there's a thing about dragons. I think maybe I am pulling from newer editions than when it was written, which is dragons can polymorph themselves into like a humanoid form, blend in with a crowd, and it's kind of like that scary moment of like you're talking to an NPC and you're realizing, oh, it's a dragon.
Yeah.
We did have that moment. Last campaign, we did have that moment.
Interesting. It paints a picture of someone this example of someone holding a lance that can hurt a dragon profusely, and it's like, all right, you're gonna let me ride you, or I threaten you with harm. I can only imagine a vindictive dragon going, fine. The moment I find an opening, I'm tearing you open.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a good idea to be on the back of a dragon that doesn't like you, right?
Yes.
You would want to, and I think a lot of fiction, I mean, we see it in the Game of Thrones books and show, in those ones often, if the dragon is more animalistic, it's about like a bond. You have a special bond with the rider, and there's a lot of fantasy series that explore that as well. Like a one-to-one dragon and human bond is something that has to be developed, and then the human's intellect or whatever guiding the dragon and making them, better than either one would be by themselves, hypothetically.
That actually brought up a new idea. Are Githyanki and Githari, whatever they're called, are they selectively breeding dragons so when they hatch they imprint on a family? And then that's
I don't know that part. That's a good question.
I don't know a lot about Githyanki. It's a part of the D&D lore that I'm like, outer space. I don't need. I already have enough.
Like Googling. No,
Are you Googling it?
That's what not Gith and Red Dragon specifically, but I mean Matthew Mercer worked that into Critical Role with a Fey Dragon, that like the Fey Dragon was bonded to a family line.
Oh yeah.
So it was loyal to that family line because they had brought them up like since they were a baby.
I know, but the difference between that example is that Fey Dragon wasn't intelligent like a human.
Yeah, no, it's not.
It was more like
an
beast,
animal.
It's like when people write like mythic wolves in the forest. It's like they're strangely wise and intelligent, but they're not here to hold a conversation.
Yeah,
it's strangely insightful.
The more intelligent your fictional dragons are, they're not. It's not like riding a beast at that point. It's a tactical agreement between the two, or whatever it might be. And if the dragons are intelligent, then they can make decisions that it does make sense for them, like what's in it for me, kind of thing. And in the Dragonlance books, they're basically on the same side of the war. So it makes sense in that way, right? But it's like they have to be intelligent enough to make that decision, but also not like aloof. Like, why would I care about people fighting each other, right? Like,
yeah.
So if there's dragons on the other side, you better hope that you can get dragons on your side too.
It's funny because when you read into like the lore of dragons, when as a DM you're like, I want to put a dragon in this world. What do I need to learn about them? Like if you read into like any chromatic dragon, it's like either they are alone and they're hunters and they're brutal, or they are willing to mingle their way into humanoid society and rule them with an iron thumb and make them into slaves. And it's like, go get gold for me. And I think the rule that I have now when I think about it, like I think what crosses my mind now is like if I ever get into a game and it's like, we're riding a dragon, I'm like, okay, so all dragons are just beasts. That's what I'm getting at. Because no way could I accept that there is a smart dragon who looks exactly the same as a bestial dragon. They're either that or they have to be different beasts. Like a wyvern is something different than a dragon.
Yeah, that's more like an animal rather than a dragon you can talk to and everything.
Then it would be an interesting conversation to be like, dear dragon, what do you think of these wyverns that we're riding? And it's like, well, it's like my cousin. I don't know if I'm okay with this.
So there's two versions of this.
Okay.
In D&D Beyond, there's a whole freaking article, but summary was that when the Gith went to war with like the Mind Flayers, like their main leader went and made a deal with Tiamat, and that's how they got control of the dragon.
Oh, the Gith made a deal with Tiamat. Oh, so they're like divinely bound.
And then in BG3, it just says because they have like psionic powers to control them and like control their mind. So
that makes it really scary. That means the Githyanki, someone in the Githyanki, or they're all doing it collectively, is psionically trying to command their intelligent brains to be subservient.
I just wondered if that was the case because there is that scene where like one of the generals comes off and like tells the dragon to basically go F off, like go do my bidding. But he does like a mind thing.
That makes sense, but then it also like it becomes weirder because they already are like morally complicated, but they're fighting against, mind flayers who are like among the worst of the worst. Yeah. But it's like, oh, so you're enslaving an intelligent race to fight this war against the guys you don't like because they enslaved you.
The Tiamat thing makes more sense because it's like if I make a deal with the god.
Yeah. That seems a little bit morally acceptable, where it's like, we made a god with your boss, like we made a deal with your boss. Yeah. And the dragons were like, well, I guess so. It's my boss. Yeah. All right.
My boss or my mom or something.
Yeah.
It's unclear.
My creator said it's okay. I guess I'll do it. But in BG3, if that's the case, if they're psionically controlling it, the moment someone slips up, they're gonna know.
Like, it's hit in the head.
The writer dies. Do they snap out of it? Could be
They're
bad.
going to be very, very mad. Speaking of mad, see, I'm an expert at transitions. Today, I really, really wanted to talk about a class within Baldur's Gate, within D&D, that I feel like doesn't get it. It's loved, but for some reason, on the scale of different classes, I don't think it's as beloved as it should be, and that's the Barbarian. I think mainly because everyone thinks of Rage, and they think, okay, let's put Barbarian in this little box of, this little angry fighter guy. He's this big, beefy, angry fighter guy who hits things with an axe. And I certainly love taking things and working against the grain and what type is generally I love working against type. And so I wanted to ask you guys, do you happen to have a favorite Barbarian subclass?
What is Yasha's a zealot?
She was a zealot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a godly, filled with divine rage.
I just liked how she played it though, because the god had something to do with it, yeah, but it wasn't like the pinnacle of her backstory, right? Like it helped her through. It was more of a tool than it was like, I am devout and this is the thing I do.
Yeah, in Thomag, that's what Godazong was, where I had the authority before you guys stole their name that was basically mapped to members of the Justice League other than Batman, because that was you guys. Godazong was the one who was subtly being Wonder Woman. And I thought that the stuff that the Zealot could do worked well. They're like fighting, for a cause sort of thing, but her like religious aspects didn't really come up in that, but some of the abilities work well for that. I think if I had to pick a favorite, I guess it might be not something I've played very much. I haven't played very much Barbarians, and I don't have experience with a lot of the subclasses, but I like the Wild Magic one.
Oh,
it's like if you're going down, if you made a word cloud about Barbarians, and it's like Rage is one, tanking is one, right? Like the animal nature connection. Okay, that's another one. I like the like chaos and leaning into the chaos and like harnessing wild magic. That's what I made Karlak in my main BG3 playthrough, and I thought it was cool to like never quite know what kind of ability you were going to have in a given fight, and then making the best of it, I think is a cool thing. Having that little mini game is always kind of it makes every fight a little different.
Yeah.
Because you can't
your
pick and choose
changes.
What your what. Ideally, I would have this, but instead I have this ability this fight, so let's make it work in that way. Looking through them, it's like over the past year, I've read a good number of the Conan stories, the original Conan stories. Where the barbarian archetype kind of comes from in D&D, and like it's interesting how different he is in many ways. Like he's got the rage, he's got the strength, he's got the like he's almost impossible to kill. But also, like, he's a thief Like he's all about stealing stuff. He hates magic.
He does.
He really hates magic. He wants to kill wizards. He doesn't like all. And it also makes sense that in Conan, like almost all wizards are evil, so he just wants to kill all of them. And I feel like that aspect, both the covetous barbarian, like the stealing and acquiring barbarian, and the anti-magic barbarian, I feel like should maybe be more represented with a subclass.
Oh yeah.
Is there one that has magic resistance or anything that I'm just like missing?
I think
I like the totem barbarian. I was gonna play that.
That's
fun.
Yeah.
Wild magic definitely. I think that might have something. So I'm looking at it right now. So I agree with you the fact that whenever a feature built in within a class forces you to play differently, I think is fun. Because it's a trope. We all know. The wizard stays back, fires at a range. The fighter jumps up or uses a bow. The barbarian goes up in front. We see it all the time. As DMs, you're like, I have a party of 5. I know what they're going to do. These 3 are going to go ahead. These 2 are going to split apart. I know what's going to happen. So now we have to make it fun every time. The fact that you can now, as a barbarian, warp as a bonus action and really kind of mess with things. Or
that's cool.
You maybe want to stick by your friends so you can heal them as a bonus action too, or you can gain a bonus, or you're faster. It's like everything's different. So let's see here. I'm looking at the Wild Magic Barbarian.
Yeah, I'm searching on rpgbot.net, their subclass breakdown. I'm looking for the words magic resistance. I'm not finding any.
It says here, beginning at 6th level, you can wild magic. You can add a D3 roll whenever making an attack or an ability check to add that. That's weird. Or you can roll a D3 and a creature gains 1 spell slot equal to that number. So that's not resistance.
Wild magic is like a pro magic barbarian class, which is kind of a weird thing. I like it a lot.
It's anti-Conan.
Yeah, I'm thinking of it's pretty popular solo RPG style game is called 4 Against Darkness, and you control 4 characters and take them through like a randomly generated dungeon. And one of the core classes is a barbarian, and everybody it's very stripped down. It's very much like you have like 1 or 2 stats, 1 or 2 special abilities, and the barbarian can rage and can't use magic items. And has the most hit points. Like those are the 3 things that make a barbarian in this stripped down what defines them. And one of them, like not being able to use magic items, is like not part of the barbarian's identity in D&D. Probably because magic items are so cool. Yeah. Right? I feel like nobody would want to play a barbarian if it meant you just didn't have access. You would have to get crazy good abilities to justify not being able to use like a magic axe or something.
Yeah. I think to your question, and it's sad because you're right, there isn't kind of like this magic focus beyond the wild magic barbarian class or subclass, or there isn't kind of like a roguish type barbarian that really, like a barbarian that focuses on dex instead of strength. That would be an interesting mix. I think the closest you would get to that is probably the totem barbarian, which I know, Amber, you very much love the Totem Barbarian simply for the fact that it's resistant when they rage to all damage types except for psychic.
I was trying to mix it because I was trying to mix in the campaign we didn't stream. It was going to be kind of like a druid mixed with a totem bar, but then I had to play with the levels, and then it didn't end up doing it. But I was like, eventually, I will make one. Because I like that subclass.
I think the only reason why I say that the totem is good for kind of a roguish type, I guess also a mixture of like resistant to damage type, because obviously you could take like the bear totem and they're resistant to everything except for psychic. Mm-hmm. That's helpful for spells.
Yeah.
You're getting hit with all types of elements as a barbarian, and if you're resistant to it, then that makes you a better tank. The further you go along with the like aspects of beasts and tometic attunement, you can choose like other options, like maybe you're faster, like there's like a totem of the elk.
Stack them, no?
Yeah, you can stack. You can mix and match.
Yeah.
So maybe
I think when you level up,
you're a little faster. Now you're kind of like a rogue. You're like you don't have to do a bonus action to dash. You just go 60 feet. I think there's other ones where like you can make a giant leap, or you can do a bonus action to knock someone down. Again, not roguish, but
there's like 5 of them. Have other things. 4 or 5 of them. You can pick.
I'm looking at the D&D 2024. What subclasses they actually kept. So we got the Berserker, which you have to have. That one makes all the sense in the world.
I think they fixed the Berserker, which is good because it was bad in 2014.
It wasn't great. It's I mean, the worst one is the spiked armor one, because that was from the Sword Coast Guide, where all the subclasses just
and you
suck.
can only be a dwarf to do that.
and it adds like plus 1d4 damage. It's so stupid, but they were really worried about the subclasses being too powerful, and then later they forgot about that.
It's not called the Totem, it's called the Wild Heart. And I wrote,
in 2024
the Wild Heart one now.
The Wild Heart,
and then they with animals, choose an animal.
A druidic path now for barbarians. The World Tree, I think it's called.
In the
extended reach,
kind of makes sense. Like if you're out in the nature, like not everybody has to be a druid. It's like, well, what if you're just really good at surviving out there and you're a beast of a person?
Yeah, the ability to teleport creatures and potentially lock them in place for a turn. That's the World Tree. The World Tree is an excellent defender.
Cool.
You get Vitality Surge, branches of the tree. I mean, it's called the tree, but it's not particularly animal or like nature flavored. It's just the World Tree name. And then they kept the Zealot one. Yeah. Tries to be an unstoppably durable striker, but doesn't do as much damage as the Berserker, so maybe not as good. I think it's interesting to think what is a barbarian that a fighter isn't, and then how do you emphasize different parts of that in the subclass? Are they somebody that's like out in nature and whatever? The most I've ever played a barbarian was in the old Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. My canonical playthrough that I played through was a dwarven barbarian, and the goal was just to have as much health as possible, to just have my constitution was 20 from the start and everything else, and just have as much HP. And he wasn't like this, fictionally, he's not from the wilds or whatever. He just, stands in front and goes crazy and uses a big weapon and can just take a ton of hits. The ultra tank kind of role.
I actually like the barb and the fighter in BG3. I'm not that way when I make
You're
my
not
characters.
a big spellcaster anymore.
Yeah, but generally those are the two. But I made a Dampier, so I could just turn into bats and then
cool.
Be in a different part of the fight and then beat the shit out of somebody, which was hilarious.
Do you have a favorite subclass for barbarian, Amber?
Oh, well, I think either the Totem or the Zealot, the two they kept. I don't think I've played much else between those two.
I played a barbarian in I think a few one-shots in the past, who was this, again, real life affects, a fantasy sometimes, especially sort of where you just go. So when I became a dad, I was like, I'm going to make a dad barbarian, a daddarian. And I picked the path of the Astral Guardian, which is something that I don't see a lot of people play as, mainly because a lot of it is you enter a rage and you hit someone. Now this person is locked, and if they hit anyone else, it's at disadvantage. Or as a reaction, they can, I think within 30 feet, reduce damage by 2d6, and it increases as you go up. Or you can literally hit someone, and I think it's
Doesn't
I think it reduces damage and then it reflects it back or something along that lines. It's very much of I'm the protector barbarian in this group. It doesn't feel more like it's about rage anymore. It's not anger. It's more I'm just the defender.
I think it's about flavor though. Sorry, Nick.
No, go ahead.
Because you don't have to be like you said, you don't have to be fucking angry at something. You can have different motivations for rage. Rage comes out in different forms in real life, so it's why not apply that to your character? I just think it gets a little bit too stuck in the stigma of what a barb's supposed to be.
It's weird compared to other classes. You're trying to think of what other classes like embody an emotion. I guess like the bard can be very emotion focused, but it's not defined by one, right?
Yeah.
Performance, I guess, right? But that's different. That's not an emotion. That's like an action. But yeah, the way do you express that, and the fact that it's called rage, but what else would it possibly be called? Yeah. Right. The other thing it would be called would be berserk, and that's one of the subclasses.
Enter the zone.
Right. But it's also like, it's based on Conan, but it's also based on like the Vikings and stuff that actually like did stuff like this, or like in the Middle East, the like dervishes and stuff. This is the thing that was in wars, like dudes that would fight like crazy and often like take drugs or something to dull pain and to be, unpredictable and whatever. And it's interesting to see the different subclasses try to capture that. I'm reviewing the abilities on the Berserker, and they kept it in 2024 and they moved it up. But Retaliation, where when you take damage from something within 5 feet, you get like a free attack. That's good, because you have to give a barbarian a reason. Like you don't wear the best armor, you just have a ton of hit points, so you should get rewarded when you get hurt.
Yeah,
there should be a reward for you standing up there, and that's like you see that in Conan. Like he gets so pissed off when something hurts him that he just like breaks its neck or whatever.
I think.
I wonder if you could.
No, feel free. Yeah.
I wonder if you could do some of the stuff that blood hunters do with a barbarian, like a barbarian that does more damage the lower HP they are or something, and like encourage that kind of HP experimentation stuff.
A decrease on yourself so you could hit better or something.
Yeah, it's like it would be less about hurting yourself, but it's like add, for every 10 HP you're missing, add 1 damage to your melee attacks or something like that.
That encourages you to be in the fray. It's like
and encourages you to be like to fight bloodied, right? And to not short rest all the time, right? Actually, or not spend hit dice when you short rest.
It's like we're about to fight the big BVG. I can suffer 20 HP. You can take that down, and I can get like a +2 to my attacks. Do that.
Maybe do that. Like, and maybe give them something where they could spend hit dice in fights to do more damage, rather than being able to heal with them.
This is really cool. I like this.
Yeah.
I'm like, you got to be careful, because Steve would agree to this as he was our resident barb. He'd just be like, "Yeah, do it."
I have in my Wednesday campaign, I have a character who's playing a blood hunter oozling. There is a spelljammer race. I don't think it's called oozling. I don't think it's called that. Let me double check.
I think it's called a ooze, but
it's something more than just ooze. It is. Here, I'm gonna pull up my settings specific.
Slime? Not slime. No, D&D slime race spelljammer.
Is it a slime?
Hold on.
A plasmoid.
Plasmoid.
It's called a plasmoid. They are a plasmoid blood hunter druid, and because in my world there is no plasmoids, they have now become sort of an experiment. So every time they run across someone, when they show their real face, because they can morph themselves, they're very Clayface-ish person. Those who are intelligent enough to want to experiment or investigate, they're like, "Can we have a piece of you?" And I'm like, "Well, you are a blood hunter. Do you want to sacrifice your pinky for them to investigate?" And I think they have permanently lost 3 HP so far, and they're constantly because they are giving away pieces of themselves to be investigated. And they've agreed to it. They're like, "Yeah, if you want to look at me, you can." And then like a little blob comes out, and I'm like, "You've lost 1 HP permanently until you get it back."
I'll give you a free idea. I don't know if it will ever be appropriate, but in a book I'm reading right now, one thing that happens is these people, when they drink someone else's blood, they are linked with that person, so they can see what that person is seeing, and the other person can see what they're seeing. And so people, like, a couple of times it had little vials of somebody's blood, so that they could communicate over a distance and do whatever. I think it would be cool if this oozling person at certain points, plasmoid person, saw through like where their pinky was and saw what was happening to it. Because it seems arbitrary that your consciousness is in your head if you're made of plasma or whatever. Why isn't your consciousness a little bit in your pinky? or whatever. Why do you even have pinkies if you're a plasmoid or whatever, right? It would be cool to like flash to those different ones and see what was happening and what's going on with the other parts of you that you left behind.
Good thing this is all recorded, and I can always refer back to it. There actually is
a hag thing.
That's the we did that before.
Yeah, in your game,
one shot, and your Christmas one shot, Nick. But where you can do Eerie Token, and you can do a piece of yourself. There also, I think,
we swapped ours though. We swapped eyeballs so we could see through each other.
In Critical Role, I think there is one of their books. They do have like a blood cleric, like a hemiocraft cleric, who I think they get like a free use of scrying if they have your blood.
I don't remember if it's Critical Role or Tasha's.
No, it's Critical Role. Yeah, they're the ones who really wanted to push in the hemiocraft stuff.
Yeah.
But no. Moving back to sort of what we were talking about for barbarians, I think honestly they should switch it from rage to like emotionally charged, or it should be like, focused. Like you enter a focus.
Yeah, that's such an opposite, right? Like rage implying the reckless, out of control, and like focus is like a super focused state of fighting. But it's like mechanically they would probably work out kind of the same.
Yeah,
right. Like they could both have the same effects. The flavor's just very different.
I played a satyr barbarian mother who I made. This whole backstory was like cursed, and she I think I made her. There was a few options.
You made her calm, right?
I made her calm. So whenever she felt peace, true peace. So she had to remember like old days of like hanging out with her family,
cool. Yeah.
And she would. She was a Path of the Beast barbarian, so she would start to take on animalistic forms when she would transform, and she would go into a peace because she got like infected, and so now she was looking for
that's interesting. Playing with the inversion of that is fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, I know I like to top off these this above table with a horror story. I found one that was very short and less horror and
more questionable.
It was marked as lighthearted, but I will say trigger warning for anyone who is sort of can't deal with sort of the idea of like maybe some lost loved ones. This does deal with some lost loved ones, but it does it. I'll have to explain the story because it's very lighthearted in the way it does it. It's very jokey, but just a trigger warning for anyone who just can't take a little bit of it. So it reads, I think my campaigns might bring bad luck.
That's not good with the precedent you just gave.
So content warning, death of relatives. So a couple of years ago, I was running a campaign, and at a certain point, I asked another person if she wanted to join. She was like, okay, but I have to tell you that my dad has brain cancer, so my schedule might be a bit complicated. I obviously wasn't going to go tell her, okay, well, you know what, scratch that, screw that, good luck with your dying dad, El Mayo. So he wasn't going to say that.
Yeah.
But he invited her, she joined, and then a few weeks later, her dad died. Sad.
Mm-hmm.
But tragedies happen. We were there for her, literally her words, not mine. And then the campaign went on hiatus for some unrelated reasons, but I was still itching to DM. So I gathered the group of a couple of new players and started a new campaign. Everything was going great until one of my players told us that he was going to have a hard time coming in further because his dad was having leg problems and needed help being put to bed. It's the dad. It's the opposite Disney effect.
Yeah, we got to get one on somebody because moms be dying left and right. I was like, what the hell do we do?
The last time he came to a session a few weeks ago, I remember telling him, well, I hope he gets better. He hasn't come in since. Then yesterday, during one of the weekly sessions, another player who's friends of him told us that his father's disease was degenerate and incurable, and that he might die in 2 weeks or 2 years.
That's a very large time, like gap between 2 years.
I don't know what I think I'm going to defer to what Nick said in the past, which is it's Reddit.
Yeah.
Always take it with a grain of salt. On the same evening, a couple hours later, another player received news that their grandmother had died. If you have any advice to stop the inflicting curse on my players, I'm all ears.
Weird thing, and I've told you this, Mike, like, I don't know, throughout my life, whether it's personal, friends, work, people go in threes, and I don't know why that is. It's just like, it's a fucking thing that happens.
Law. Yeah.
And I mean,
celebrities.
It doesn't always have to be days or weeks, but like maybe months, but like people go in threes, like in batches, and I don't know what that is. So that may just be like the laws of reality for this dude, and he just happens to be in the wrong circle at the wrong time.
I don't know. It's one of those funny things where like people make jokes like the biggest problem about running D&D games is scheduling. Like the scheduling monsters come back and now we can't play this week. I mean, Nick knows what's up. It's like, we run games.
It can be tough. Yeah. I guess the only advice I have is that you have to be flexible when it comes to real life stuff, but also like that's why a lot of campaigns don't catch, right? They don't get into that gear. I think it's a lot easier to be flexible once you have like some track record and history and runway behind you. Yeah. Then it's like if we have to miss like 2 or even 3 in a row, it sucks, but we can pick it up again. But when you're trying to get started and you get like random curveballs, that can be tough. Yeah, I mean one of the answers that it comes up on these same subreddits or whatever is to do like a West Marches campaign where it can, rotating DMs, rotating players. It's whoever shows up on a given day, and it's basically like you're at a fortress at the edge of like a wilderness, and at the start of the session, you guys head out of the fortress and you do whatever and you explore hexes and whatever. At the end of the session, you're back at the fortress. So everything starts and ends at the fortress, and it can be a rotating cast of players. So whoever can't make it on a given day, it doesn't really matter. That's logistically complicated to do, but it's probably been around for like 20 or 30 years because this has been a problem for as long as there's been RPGs, and people have been trying to figure out like, what do we do about that?
So Nick's advice is to be flexible.
My advice was to sage the goddamn.
I was gonna do a joke answer too. That was the real advice is to be flexible. The joke answer is to get the sage, get some smudgings or whatever you call it. And,
I'm just saying that just may have rolled the wrong batch dice, man, and like the 3 collided together with like the group you had, and hopefully after this you're in the clear for a little while.
Do you think after the 3rd death of like a family member, other players who witness this, do they start to connect the dots, and they're like,
I gotta
maybe
go.
we should go. Maybe I should go. Maybe we'll connect another time, and they never come back. It's like, I can't.
You're like, I'm good now. We gave 3 to the demon, and now I should be.
We played 5 sessions, and Johnny's grandmother died. I don't know what to tell you, man. It's just, it happens all the time. I feel really bad.
It's just how it works. I don't know. Like I said, anytime that's anybody's passed away, either with me personally or just like through a connection or something, it's always been in 3s. I don't know why. I don't know why that happens. You gotta go with friends, I guess. I don't
know. Certainly a mixture between lightheartedness and not so. But yes, other than that, I think next time I want to leave it up to a vote for you guys. What class is on your mind that we can break down? We could do this next time.
I wouldn't mind getting back into the blood cleric. I mean, we could always drop what we have from the book.
Clerics. Now that's a heavy.
I don't need to know. I just like the blood part of it, because I remember we were throwing that around for Temple's character.
You got it. Next above table, we're talking about clerics.
No, just want that one.
Thank you so much for joining us, everyone, for above table. We'll check you next time. Bye.
Clerics is so long.